Yes.
Okay, so my clock says 7:05. We'll call to order Norwalk Historical Commission meeting September 26th.
Okay, but I'll just call this number, right? Okay, okay. Bye.
Do we have any public participation? I don't see anyone.
Nope, I don't see anybody on tonight.
Reports from boards. Norwalk Historical Society, Diane Jelleret. Yeah, unmute. There we go.
Good evening, everyone. So for the summer, the Historical Society participated in the Kinetic Summer of the Museum, and we had Mill Hill Historic Park open every weekend in July and August. It was a great opportunity to invite people from the public to see Mill Hill. We had the buildings open, and this is the third summer that the state has offered that. And we also hired an intern to help us out during the summer. So we were very grateful for the additional grant. And it ended on September 4th this year. The other thing I want to announce is that we have a new curator with the Historical Society in the city of Norwalk, Michael Murphy. He started in mid-August. And he will be doing the same things that Darren was doing with the museum collection, and organizing and documenting our collection and putting that information online. So we welcome Michael to the organization. We had a couple of events over since July, since the last time we met. One of the events that we just had was on September 14th. It's the first in a series of lectures called The First Peoples of Western Connecticut. And we are doing 3 lectures. And the first one was on September 14th. We had a living historian, an Algonquin living historian. His name is Drew Shupard Ravis. He was great. So it was a virtual lecture, and basically it was a demonstration. And for an hour and a half, it was wonderful. He's very knowledgeable, and we hope to have him back in person again. We did have him at Mill Hill in 2019, but I see that we're going to bring him back in person also. But there was many people on that virtually that would never have seen him. Next, on the 17th, at Mill Hill, we had a poetry reading. We've never had that before, and I don't know if a lot of people realize that Norwalk does have a poet laureate. His name is Bill Hayden. And on Sunday afternoon, on September 17th, we used Mill Hill. The outside, it was a gorgeous day to be outside and listening to open mic poetry. So that was the first, and I think many that will be happening in the future. And coming up, we had scheduled for a concert on Friday, Snap, Crackle, and Pop. If you haven't gotten that email, out at the Historical Society Museum. But we may actually change the date because it might look like it might rain, and it is an outdoor event. So we'll let you know if that changes. And next, October 5th, and Susie, you probably talk about this, is that we're both co-hosting a author talk on October 5th, next Thursday, with Max Tucci, the Delmonico Way. He is the grandson of Oscar Tucci of the famous Delmonico restaurant in New York City. So we're so looking forward to it. So it's a lecture, it's a lecture, it's a talk, it's a book signing, and if you buy tickets, you'll get the book complimentary, and some refreshments and a special cocktail to go along with that. So that'll be fun, and that's 6 o'clock October 5th. That's a Thursday, and it will be at Mill Hill. And the next is our next lecture that we're going to do is that virtual lecture on the peoples of Western Connecticut. The next one is October 12th. Again, it's another virtual lecture, and it will be with Robert Kohler, and he's going to talk about the Seminole Nation, and that is a tribe off of Long Island. And after that will be the last on October 26th, and will be a lecture by Nahum Kashet Chilling, and he's going to talk about defragmenting the deep and recent indigenous legacy of Norwalk. That should be very, very interesting. And there's a book coming out that he's written a chapter in that's going to be released at the end of October. And last, we are looking at doing something for Halloween the last weekend, and we're still evolving that. And so it's going to be a blast to the past. So just wait, and you'll get announcements shortly about what we're doing. And then we're already looking into November, looking at Veterans Day and taking part in a national bell ringing that's going to occur on Saturday, November 11th at 11 a.m. And they're doing a big event down in Washington, D.C., which can be live streamed. But there'll probably be more to that. So hang on. There's more to come. And that's the end of my report.
Thanks, Diane. Next
Any
up,
questions?
questions, anyone? And that was a terrific lecture. And also he was in Maryland, right? Was he in Maryland? Why did I think that?
He's in Wappinger Falls. That's where he is.
Okay, Wappinger Falls. Yeah, that might have been a little bit of a ride. Okay, thanks. Next up is Susie Gilgore from Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dana. I would like to start by thanking all of you for your continuous and generous support. And also say a thank you to Commissioner Jim Freyer. He's not here today, but he recommended to us a great speaker for our baseball talk, which is on November 5th. And if you're interested, get your tickets soon because it's going to be sold out. The summer was very busy with internships, which we discussed last time, but also we had the flea market, which was a big success despite the reduced space in the park. We had to host less vendors. We had 80 vendors or 85 vendors instead of the usual 100. And we had to move the event to August due to religious holidays. But this said, it was very successful. We had thousands of people. The only complaint that I heard was that there wasn't enough parking. So we will have to scramble for next year to figure out how to accommodate this growing event. We have launched the Young Writers Competition titled My Museum Adventure, or we already have a few takers. And we are launching between October and November 3 different events. A very special thank you to Diane and the Norwalk Historical Society for very graciously hosting us and collaborating on this event. She told you what the event is about. It's going to be exciting. He's going to be arriving with his Bentley. And it promises to be to have some fireworks. We just have held a very successful talk at the Norwalk Library. So special thank you to the Norwalk Library and to Patsy Brescia, who organized this talk. and the venue. And that was on Belden Avenue, and it was with architect Philip James Dodd. It was a talk as well as a book signing, and it was very successful. Diane Books from Greenwich came, and she said that she sold all the books. Anyway, the talk was really entertaining, fascinating, and it was followed by a trip to Woodlawn Cemetery, where the Matthews family is buried, as well as many other notable Americans. For those who don't know yet, we have a wonderful 1960s gala that has garnered a lot of support, and it's going to be a lot of fun. There's dancing, presentation, live auction, and it's held at the Shorehaven Golf Club. I hope that you will all be able to come. We have a new lecture that I mentioned earlier. It's a baseball talk and panel discussion that will also be held at the public library, but this time it's going to be on Washington Street. And it will feature a legend, Ron Darling from the New York Mets, Bob Wertz, who is a former PR director for the Kansas City Royals and has had a stellar career, and baseball contributor for CNN and other wonderful things, Kelly Franco Throop, who was again, she was recommended by Jim, and so we are looking forward to having her. And again, we're very grateful for all the organizations in Norwalk, including Stepping Stones, who has already offered to let us have all the talks in the spring at their venue again. So it's really been, the city of Norwalk has come together to really help us during this challenging time. So thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you at our events.
Okay. Any questions, anyone?
Dana, I'll jump
Yes.
in and give an update on construction.
Okay.
First of all, I just talked with Doug Hempstead, and he is out of town, but he said he didn't get an invite again this month. So if you can just make sure he gets on the list. But construction is moving along. It's absolutely an amazing project. And if you just go to the park and walk around the outside and do not come within the gate, because that's a real security issue. But there's a lot of disruption immediately around the building, because all of the stone flooring that was in the basement has been taken out of the basement, and it's stored on site. And then we have some soil that also has been taken out of trenches in order to get water lines in, and that's stored on site. But it's going along pretty much on schedule. The inside is heavily protected. All of our precious interiors are heavily protected with appropriate materials. And it is, I've been involved in a lot of construction, both for public uses here in Norwalk, but then also, for private construction. And this is incredible. It's really, truly incredible. It's hard. It would be wonderful to get everybody to be able to come and see what's going on, but it is a very dangerous site. So that to have many people walking around is almost impossible. We are experiencing dampness in the basement that we didn't we didn't anticipate, because our plans for the future are really to utilize the basement space for our archives and for meeting spaces, and then sometime in the future, hopefully, to get the bowling alley actually restored and maybe functioning. And we are currently now focusing on raising funds and identifying sources where we can get funding for restoring some of the actual lighting fixtures that were in the building, and then also to acquire replicas of those. So that's where we are, and the plan is that we would be pretty much done this time next year if all goes well, but that is rarely happens in a construction project of this dimension. But there is a lot of activity on site. So I don't know if anyone has any specific question that I try to answer for you. I don't see any hands raised. That's good. That's good news. Okay. So thank you all for your support. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Patsy.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up, reports. Buildings. David, are you going to cover that, or I didn't receive anything. Some stuff about Mill Hill, the gutters on the jail, or is that the barn?
The barn, we had the back gutter finally put on the barn.
Okay, yeah.
And we're finally closing out the phase 2 of the construction of the ADA work around the jail, the hillside path and the sidewalks and everything. We had a meeting with DPW last week. We have to add a handrail in front of the jail, unfortunately, and one other minor thing to close that project out. But we're going to get that done. We've also buildings facilities management has issued the purchase order, and I just heard from BCA Associates today. They're going to do the interior specification work for how to conserve the walls on the first floor of the jail, which have mortar issues, where mortar's leaching and needs to be repaired. But it also has, the walls have a ton of graffiti written on it by the prisoners who were held in the lockup. So we're anxious to preserve all that, and they're going to tell us how to do that. And once we know how to do that and figure that out first, then we'll start on the actual interior reconstruction of the jail once all that is preserved and protected. So I'm happy to finally be moving that along. This is year 12 of the jail renovation project. The prior was in 2010. Let's see. Minor stuff has gone on at the museum. I have to say, facilities management has been very responsive and great as we transition the maintenance over. So we're happy with that. We still have to work out some reporting issues for them to provide a monthly report for us, but we'll get that going. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I think that's it.
Cemeteries, I haven't walked through. I just sort of glanced over at the cemeteries.
The fence, part of the fence, the split rail fence at Brookside is been pushed over, and I'm just having our handyman fix that. Okay. There's also a dead tree at Kellogg Comstock, and it's on. It's a big tree, and it's completely dead, and it's on Ken Hughes' list to have taken out.
Right.
So I think that's it on cemeteries.
Next is financials. I guess we also need someone other than you to, not that you're doing a bad job, but it shouldn't be your job to do this job, our financials. I received a blank form for fiscal year 23-24, but I don't know what to do with it. Michelle said that, right?
What's it for?
Just for filling out the fiscal year. It's just a blank form. So
Just forward it to me. I'll look at it.
okay,
I think, was that the rollback thing that we?
I
I
think so.
The expenses, we don't have any expenses to roll over from, or any
Right.
unused budget to roll over that we need to roll over from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. And I did tell them that the capital budget scrutinization or whatever that's going on, don't really have much of there either. So I think that's it.
Okay. Okay, so we're up to old business, and were we going to remove push the historical district discussion into old business? I think that's what I gathered from a few emails today.
No, there was
that,
emails asked. Mark was asking about an update on demolition projects, and because if they were discussed by the commission in the past, you can discuss them under old business.
Okay.
It's not a good idea to vote on something unless you formally put it on the agenda.
Okay.
I never like to, vote on anything unless it's been actually published, but you can. You just have to make a motion to put it on the agenda. But just to discuss under old business demolition status, you can do that. So.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have anything for that today. I was just going through the emails and I thought.
I think Mark had some questions. Did you have specific demolitions, Mark?
I just wanted to follow up on some stuff. That was all, because we've talked about a lot of stuff and then it just went to the wayside. Like Lewis Street, Maple Street. Where are we with some of that stuff? We talk about it and then it just goes away and then we don't hear anything, and then next the wrecking ball's there. So it's like I just want to start following up more on stuff, because it just seems like we mention it once and then the attorneys come and we never talk about it again.
Right. I think Lewis Street is kind of an odd situation. We're just going to have to keep our eyes on that.
Yeah, but then you also said there's a thing for Marvin Street, right?
Marvin Street is, oh yeah, that's the 1875 house.
I drove by it last night. There's nothing wrong with the house.
Yeah, I think they would have they just want to put a lovely seaside castle there, it sounds like. I'm not sure if there's any, it would be nice to save all these houses, but I guess I come to the point where picking and choosing. I don't know. Did I send a picture? I sent an email, a picture of that out. I also got in trouble for parking on some woman's lawn around the corner, but yeah, I don't know what to think about that. Just to put any delay in just to bother them, or I mean, what would be our real purpose there? I don't know the history of the home. I know it's almost adjacent to a Marvin house, that one on the corner. But anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, maybe Todd knows more information about the house.
Todd's raising his hand.
I really don't know much about it, except that this guy showed up at my door with some paperwork for it. And he apparently thinks the delay is already in place, which isn't a bad idea. At the very least, you could get it documented. You could, if there's anything of any particular historic value in the house, there's a realtor.com listing for it still.
Mm-hmm.
On the web, so you get a pretty good idea. It's a really nice late 19th century colonial revival house.
Yeah.
Or Foursquare, I forget what it looked like, but it's in that era. It's in terrific shape. They paid $1.1 million for it. But that's apparently not enough. They need they want to do whatever it is. But I mean, it's not going to slow them down any. 90 days is not going to slow down anything important. And I think it's worth. It's unlikely that they can be talked out of demolishing it.
Right.
It's not listed. So it's always worth it to engage with these guys and see what you can see what's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are we up to 120 days delay, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it 120 now?
Yeah, because we couldn't get 180, so it is 120, so that's a little bit better. Yeah.
No, it's we changed that a long time ago.
Okay.
We were hoping to get it changed to 180 in this last go round, but
right.
That didn't happen.
My brain is not working all that well tonight. But in any event, they seemed willing to engage. They thought I had more power than I do. But they did, he had the wrong phone number, he had the wrong email, so he came to my door. So somebody should, contact them and just see what you can do before you put the delay on.
Right.
Using the delay more as a deterrent.
Or kind of get an idea, perhaps what they're going to put up, but.
What you might want to bring up is that zoning regulation, that if you preserve a house and if it's not on the basic HRI, it doesn't take much to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all that's really required in order to get correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but that's really all that's required to get the zoning help for the preservation of a historic house, which has been used several times now. So you might want to bring that up.
Okay.
That they might be able to build more than they originally planned. It's worth a try. Got nothing to lose.
So this is what they have a spec idea. This isn't someone that bought it to build their dream house.
Yes.
I asked two questions at once.
Postal luxury homes.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it sounds scary.
If anybody knows them, yeah, that's enough to terrify anybody. But
yeah, I just got back from South Jersey, so I see those luxury homes there in the flood zone.
But there is that. I mean, that's the whole point of that zoning regulation, is to get these guys to preserve these houses and then be able to build something bigger behind it.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about 11 Marvin Street?
I just had a question. He actually contacted me too through my phone, and I just forwarded it to you, Dana. I don't know, when these things come up. I mean, I don't think that we all should be engaging with everybody separately. It should sort of be a united voice. So that's why I just forwarded it to you. But,
right.
That somebody all told him to call me.
One representative from the commission with Michelle's support should be dealing with them.
Yeah, I think I probably got something. It's kind of hard to keep track, and then a few things in the newspaper I see. So I think, is that all our old business, perhaps? I think so.
Anything with Maple Street, or is that a lost cause now at this point?
I was told I really only cared about, is it 394? I was told that it was too late to put in demolition delay for that. I'm not sure when that was originally posted. It's hard to keep track with that property. I mean, I'd sacrifice all the other ones for that one, but without a phone. Yeah.
Dana, excuse me. I think that one came in the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Great.
and I documented it with large format
Hmm.
and digital a few
Yeah.
years ago. So it's been documented by to Historic American Building Survey standards, along with history and the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's that might have been their concession
Mm,
to the city.
right. So that was in 2018. Yes.
Well, the thing
And
is, I mean, we had met with them in 2018 and through all what we had met and they came to us as a commission and had talked about preserving some of the aspects of that house within the lobby. And I'm just wondering, like, when we go through all that and then it all of a sudden changes hands, it gets sold, all that is null and void. Everything that we had discussed with the previous iteration of it just kind of gets thrown out the window.
Right. That's kind of what happened with Quincy Street as well. Change of ownership didn't make us get to see this stuff again. And have we seen, I know we saw plans for the 2018, but I'm not quite sure have we seen plans for the new stuff, the new construction?
And they didn't come to us, but they did a big special meeting with planning and zoning where they went through everything.
Right. Is it, I think it's still owned by the hospital though, or?
No, I don't know that it is anymore.
Okay.
They have this really grandiose plan to build, senior housing and more treatments and all this other stuff, which apparently vaporized.
Yeah. That's how things are in this town sometimes. Got a lot of moving parts. Okay, so new business. Darren is probably still eagerly awaiting deaccessioning of items to the Seaport Association, and that's coming from the Historical Society, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So there's 9 items in the Historical Society that either haven't been accessioned or were given some basic accession number during the move from South Norwalk, most of which isn't really pertinent to the collection, but can be used by the Seaport Association, who is reinterpreting the Sheffield Island Lighthouse. So these are things that have been in storage for years and years and years. They're not things that would readily be incorporated into an exhibit for the Historical Society or for the city. And they can be displayed and put to better use than what we have been doing with them. And they'll be preserved better in doing that and in transferring them. So I think I sent pictures to everybody.
Yeah, I resent them today, right? I think.
Yeah. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Well, what's the environment like for furniture out there? Is this something that we're sending them off if they do have some Norwalk aspects to them, the Quintard? Will they remain at least the way they are, or could they deteriorate further in that environment?
No, these are things. A couple of these pieces are not in great condition anyway. They're not deteriorating. They're not going to be deteriorating in the new environment. In the case of the mirror, it's already broken. We don't have the other missing element for it. And I think the Quintard, the Quintard 3-drawer bureau is not in fabulous. It's an okay condition. It's in fair condition, but it's not, really a museum quality piece as it is. It's not in perfect condition. It hasn't been restored. It does need a little bit of love. But all these things would be better put to use there. They're not going to deteriorate any further than they already have. And aside from that and the desk, and the candy counter. All the rest of the stuff doesn't really have a very strong Norwalk association.
Okay. Now, are we going to ever get these back, or now we're deaccessioning them, that we're just relinquishing it to the Seaport Association if we choose to do that?
I personally am not a fan of permanent loans or long-term loans. I would rather deaccession and give it to them. These pieces have never really been accessioned into the collection as it is. So a lot of these you're not really voting to deaccession because there's nothing to deaccession. It's more, you know, we're coming to you to make sure that you know what we're doing, why we're doing it, giving you the background of why these particular pieces. And again, one of the things that the city of Norwalk had me do when I was there as curator is really go through the collection and kind of identify the things that are really important, that tell the story of Norwalk, that are super significant either to the place or to individuals that live there. None of these were among those items. So they were things that I would have suggested being deaccessioned and moved over as it was.
Okay, and could we suggest that they, if there is a Norwalk connection, that be sort of notated somewhere within the exhibit, or is it just going to be like that, looking like a home where the
it's being staged as a historic house? What will be noted is that at the bottom of the panels, it will say, you know, gifted from City of Norwalk, Norwalk Historical Society.
But it's Quintard name won't really ever be there in perpetuity for people to know what that was.
I'm sure that they will document that it is Quintard in the few pieces that are actually Quintard pieces. The problem with this is that particularly in the bureau in the case of the bureau, and I believe in the case of the desk, the Quintard Association is coming from memory of one particular person, and it's not stamped on the item. So I can't remember if it's the case of the desk, but certainly the case of the drawers, they're not stamped Quintard. So it's a question of whether they actually are as it is.
But one it said in the description had Quintard on it, was the bureau, I think.
I don't think it was the bureau. That one was attributed to, it might have been the desk. I just can't remember. One of them is stamped. I don't think it's the drawers. I believe it's the desk.
Okay.
We have other Quintard pieces in the collection, however, that we're keeping.
That are in better condition and are interesting for a variety of reasons, not just because they're Quintard, but because they're not brown furniture. We have a beautiful painted bureau and vanity, for example. So we do have other Quintard examples. These are just not phenomenal ones, and these were not purchased in Norwalk. It's simply a Norwalk company. I think the desk in particular was found in Vermont, for example. And I know the bureau was from Polly Apperson's estate.
Okay. So Eric's usually the one that steps in now and suggests we.
Where is Eric?
Have a motion.
He's in outer space.
He's in outer space. He's so quiet.
A motion to vote.
He's muted.
Count your blessings. I move that we vote on the deaccessioning of the items as proposed by our deaccessioning expert.
And I'll second it.
Okay, so
do we need to do all those in favor, or
does anybody oppose? How about that?
That's good.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dana, say it.
Okay, Liz does not have her hand up. Eric does not have his hand up. Wait. I wish I had more of a I don't have my hand
you didn't
up.
Say it. All in favor, or what are you?
No, we're saying, is anyone not in favor of that? I think we're all in favor of deaccessioning these items. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Okay. So we're donating. Is it donating or
We're transferring ownership.
transferring ownership of 9 furniture items from the Norwalk Historical Society, perhaps collection, but not really, to the Norwalk Seaport Association.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Say hi to the cat. Oh. Next up is the vote on the budget for Norwalk Historical Society. And I think David has a little on that to tell us.
So the Historical Society, there's 2 changes going on. One, the Historical Society was getting a quarterly grant from the city, and it was just a lot of paperwork. So we're making that an annual grant similar to what is done for the Lockwood Matthews Mansion. That's part 1. Part 2, we were spending, the city was funding about $35,000 a year to a curator who'll be nameless, but who's on the call, for professional consulting services to help us get the city's collection in shape. The Historical Society has generously decided to come up with the money to match that and to hire a full-time employee, which Diane mentioned, Michael Murphy, from who is the archivist and curator at New Canaan, who started at the Historical Society last month, to speed that project along. So for the next 3 years, we're hoping it's just 3 years, Michael will be concentrating on finishing the work that Darren started, getting everything, going through the collection, figuring out what's not relevant to Norwalk, working with the commission to get rid of it, and then everything we're keeping to make sure that it's housed properly, to make sure that it's stored properly, and to photograph it, document it, and put it in the online system of Connecticut, the Connecticut League of History Organizations online system, so that our collection will be fully online and available to anybody who wants to look at it. So we need to get the collection to that point. You know, we just, several years ago, we tried to do some of that, but we just ran out of time and we just moved the collection. And so while everything is stored in an okay format, nothing is in danger, we didn't have time to go through and evaluate everything. And that's what we're trying to do now. But once we get this behind us, then we have our infrastructure in place. The collection is in a good place. We'll have hopefully all the buildings in good shape. And then it's really about programming and doing exhibits and really, you know, exploiting and making use of the collections we have now. So to that end, we're transferring about $30,000 from the professional services budget to the Historical Society grant. And that saves the city money because the society is hiring the person, not the city. So the benefits, you know, cost are less and all that. So it's kind of a win-win, and basically it pushes everything ahead. So we think this is about a 3-year deal. So the grant will go to $120,000 a year for 3 years, and then we'll see where we're at. So that's a proposal today. 1, make it an annual grant, and 2, increase it to $120,000. Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
No hands up, except Mark's fidgeting with his glasses. He's just bought the Monet painting. Okay, so we'll need a, what's that word again, Eric?
Motion.
Motion?
But
Motion.
Eric, I think you might want to recuse yourself, Eric.
Okay.
Yes,
Since you're on the Historical Society board.
Oh, right. Okay.
You don't have to, but just a suggestion.
No.
Mark, Lisa, Eric. I mean, not Eric. Liz.
I think Mark raised his hand.
Oh, to make a motion? Okay. Need a second. I think Liz is nodding as if, okay, a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of this two-part, moving to an annual grant and moving to consolidating funds. I don't know if I said that right. To $120,000 over 3 years or per year?
Per year.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hands. And Eric, are you abstaining?
Je recuse.
Oh, recuse. Okay. So that looks like that passes.
And just to make sure you understand, there's zero impact to the commission or the city's budget. This is a net zero budget move, but it benefits the city greatly because they get the funding from the Historical Society to have the full-time curator. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. Next up, establishing number C, new business, establishing a historical district and a historic district commission. Discussion. I know within the past year, it seems like we've talked about going over the historic Norwalk resources inventory. Was that a sneeze? Bless you. We've talked about going over that again to add and look over that. This is a little different. This I think we were talking about reviving the green district or just any district in the city. Michelle.
Sure. So I'll just start a little bit from the beginning on my end. So I know it's an interest of this commission as well as city staff to kind of get this off the ground. It's a goal within the POCD for the city as well. So I put this together, did some research, spoke to city council, and if you read my memo, some of the results of the previous one for the local district with the green, I found that it said null and void. So that's the direction that council gave me. And then I know there was a little back and forth today with some members here. So ultimately, I'm just trying to open the conversation about this, get some next steps forward. And I think based on the historic pockets within the city, I definitely think there could potentially be more than one, going beyond the green. And, Weston Wall, there's some properties that kind of fall to the wayside. So I think this could capture those properties, but just here to open the discussion up.
I'm a little bit confused because I thought we do have other districts in the city. Like in Rowayton, there's the Oysterman's district. So I'm getting confused on what this even is.
We have 26 or 27 historic districts. None of them, you have to have architectural review and control over what actually happens in a historic district. The historic district has to have what's called a local designation, and it requires a vote of property owners. And this was done for the town green district in the 80s, and it was disputed, and there was a court ruling, and the previous corporation councils of the city interpreted the ruling one way, saying it was a null and void. However, the state of Connecticut says, no, that doesn't apply to here, to your district. It applies for how votes are taken in the future involving condominiums, which is a rabbit hole that I'll try to avoid. So the state of Connecticut believes, or that they believe, that the town green district has the local designation to it, and I believe that, and Todd believes that, and Darren believes that, and the SHPO believes it. We've heard it from the SHPO, and I've done some research on some of the history, and I think I can probably fill in why some of this happened, but I don't want to say that in a public meeting. having a local district will allow us to become a certified local government, which gives us training and funding. And it also gives us architectural review control over what goes on around the green. Unfortunately, in the last, since the 80s, a lot of terrible stuff has been built around the green, but at least if we can get control of it now going forward, in maybe 50 years or so, as buildings are redeveloped, the commission will be able to have some input and control over it. And I applaud Michelle for, thinking and looking at other areas that can become local designated historic districts too, because we should definitely do that. But so I think the next step is we all have to get on the same page. The Corporation Council, we've got to get the state involved and have a conference call, I think, or a Zoom meeting to sort it out. And I think that's what we agree the next step is going to be. And then we'll just, there's no vote today on this, so we can just table that. If does anybody have any questions on that, or Todd, do you want to say anything on that?
Would this separate commission only be then over the Norwalk Green, or would it just be that's the starting place for a local district and it would expand? I mean,
it would be there would be an architectural review board, which would be kind of a subcommittee, not really a subcommittee, but it'll be a review board of any projects that go on in the district area within that historic district. Isn't that correct, Darren?
Well, sort of, but not really.
Please.
So this historical commission was so when you establish a local historic district under state statutes, you need to have a historic commission that reviews any and all changes that are viewable from a public way, street, or place in that district. That's how this commission started. So once you start reviewing all those changes that are being brought before you that are happening in the green district, you're going to be the ones looking at that review process. Now, should you go forward and other places are willing to become local districts or local historic properties, one of two things can happen. Either the ordinance can be expanded so that all of those come to you and you review all the districts within Norwalk that are local historic districts, or they can have individualized historic district commissions that can review each one of those. In most cases, there's one body in the city or the town that reviews all the districts because it just makes it easier. Does that answer your question, Lisa? I think I understood it right.
Yeah, no, that helps.
Okay.
Yeah, and one other thing is if you're going to have that responsibility, you need to have a historic district manual, which basically lays out, and the state will fund consultants to write this for you, which basically lays out the requirements so that you're not just making stuff up, which guarantees that you're going to end up in court. I mean, Westport, Darren worked in Westport. They have manuals for all of their districts. It makes a whole lot of sense. It gives you a basis to work from. It's easier for you. It keeps you out of court, and the state will pay for at least part of it.
The state should pay for the whole thing, and it's usually one manual for the entire city or town because it's governed by general statutes that are set out by the state. So they're not willy-nilly things. There are certain things that are jurisdictionally your responsibility and certain things that are completely out of the jurisdiction. So for example, you won't be able to weigh in on the color somebody's painting their house, but you can certainly talk about the method of removal of earlier paint if it's going to damage historic fabrics. So these are all laid out in the Connecticut general statutes, and all of that goes into the manual, along with general process and procedure of review.
In addition, sorry. In addition, in my memo, it says what the kind of the mays and shells are for the statute of what that guide should really include and what you can ask for.
And this would then be a totally separate commission from what we are, or is
No.
going to be a subcommittee of, but it's not necessarily us. It's going to be like another body of people.
You are invested with that
You're
ability to review this stuff. So it should be you, because that's why you were established in the first place.
It does sound like it's all of us, a committee of the whole.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's what
It's not a
that's what
subcommittee.
that's what you guys, the Historical Commission, were originally supposed to be.
Yeah.
Until people got in there and started obfuscating the whole issue for their own purposes.
Yeah.
So now
based
what
on
we're
your-
trying to do is reset it to the original purpose.
and if
Based
you
on
read
the
the city
ordinance that's
code, it's
set up-
all in there that defines
Yeah.
this. It's all in there. All of this talks about architectural review. It's all in our city code already. I mean,
Right. And it's been there ever since.
But with the CLG, you also get training. You're required to go through training and things like that, so that you know what you're doing. It's not like you're just throwing stuff and you're making up opinions. So
all of the commissions, just on a point of clarification, all of the commissions should be undertaking certain trainings every single year. You should be trained on Robert's rules, but every single year, SHPO and Preservation Connecticut offer trainings specifically for historic district commissions. You should, at the very least, be doing that. Sorry, my son's having a nervous breakdown in the background. So you should be at least doing that. If you end up being a CLG, which is far down the road from where you are right now, ultimately what happens is that the people that serve on this particular commissions needs certain backgrounds. They prefer to see people that are landscape architects, that are archaeologists, that are architects, that are interior designers, people that really understand architecture and design elements. But if you can't fill, all 7 seats, the 5 main members and 3 8 seats, 3 alternates with everybody that's within that list, then you can take on other people so long as they're undergoing training to understand what they should be doing, which is basic training that you all should be doing regardless. But the CLG is a horse of a totally different color. I think you need to kind of get past this hurdle before you really get into that, because it becomes like you have to annually report on, the certificate of appropriatenesses that come to you and how you vote. And it's a big thing. So right now, I think the biggest thing is getting that local historic district back under your jurisdiction and writing an amendment so that you can cover all the things that have happened in the almost 30 years since the last time you reviewed a COA.
And Darren,
for example,
I'm sorry, Todd, go ahead.
I was going to say, for example, you can stop demolitions. And for example, you would have had the Downer Funeral Home, for example, you would have had a say in what they did to that building.
So the one thing that I'll weigh in on there, I'd be hesitant to say you can stop demolitions. You can certainly say that you don't approve of them, but there is a process whereby clients or applicants can take you to Superior Court to overturn your decisions. It doesn't happen very much. But if somebody has to come to you with a certificate of appropriateness, if they want to demolish a building, and you have to say yay or nay on whether that's appropriate, essentially. Sorry, Barry, you were about to ask me a question.
Are these districts subject to the approval of the residents within the proposed district?
Correct. So when these districts, really local historic districts should not be proposed by anybody outside of what that district should be. Like, so you guys can go, right, this is beautiful. It's a discrete area. It's made up of only homes between 1800 and 1920 and shows a beautiful development of what Norwalk was at this time. If the homeowners really love that, you then establish a study committee that either will write these reports for you or go out and hire somebody that will write these reports for you. They then come to you for a vote. They get passed along to the RTM or whatever other body a particular city or town has for vote. And then they get balloted out to each of the homeowners of note on each of the properties. They get passed only when there's 2/3 vote majority. So 66% of homeowners have to approve for that district to go through. Now, the one thing I will say is that local districts have a little bit more give and take than something like a national or state, because it's really coming from a local entity. So you have more ability to cut things out and just say, look, these 5 people didn't want to be in the district. We didn't want to sacrifice the vote because these people really did. And these are really important houses too. And you can always go back and amend and, you know, change boundaries and add in. So yes, it really should come from the homeowners, and it is subject to a vote.
But I don't believe you have to do that for the green, because that's already been done.
No, the green has already been done. It's already established. But the struggle that's going to happen here is that it hasn't been, you know, watched over and voted on for the last 30 years. So there's been a lot of incompatible development, a lot of incongruous, you know, building. So there's going to have to be some sort of amendment to that local district that was originally nominated to really document. And I haven't seen the original paper either. So I don't know how well it was documented at the time, but you really need to document the stuff that has happened over that last 30 years. So you have a baseline, which you don't have at the moment.
Right.
I have a question being, how is the vote established? Is it done by petition, or is it an actual voting site set up for people to go and vote?
No, the town clerk actually is responsible for ballots. So it's 2/3 of the ballots of homeowners that actually return them. So if you have homeowners that don't ever return them, it's not counted as anything. So it's what gets returned to you, and it's done by the town clerk.
Okay, thank you.
You're not in charge of that part.
One thing I noticed is the commission will consist of 5 regular members and 3 alternates. So we're down 4 people now. I don't know if that matters. And if we're speaking of the green, 1 member must live in the district. So if we're doing the green, because Mark lives half a mile, is that close enough? Or
he needs to be within the district.
Okay.
By state statute.
And if we don't have anyone living in that district,
then you try to recruit for one of the 4 members that you are down.
Okay.
We're a ways away from all that.
Drag.
Can I say, because I work for Norwalk Public Schools and they have the family center on the green, is that like kind of a gray area?
That doesn't really count because you're not a property owner. Buy the family centers and then you can be that representative.
So Darren, is it residents or property owner?
So the property owners, so if there's a property on the green that's being rented, it's not those people. They don't have skin in the game. So it has to be the property owners listed on the tax assessments. So the people that are of the owners of the property, if there's 1, 2, or 3, all of them get balloted.
Diane, are you on the tax assessment for the Mill Hill?
No.
No, unfortunately not.
What's for sale up there? What can we all buy? Pool our money. Oh, that's probably not really legal, is it?
I'm not hearing any of this. I'm not hearing.
You could expand it up Morgan Avenue, and that would give you a lot of possible candidates, not me.
Yeah. And up on Betswood, because then my daughter could be part of it. She's got a 1920s home.
I love where you're going with it, but you got to get enforcement first.
Right. And it's a big district. It's bigger than you think. I mean, you know, I'll send the National Register nomination to Michelle, and she can send it to y'all.
Okay. Well, I think is the national the same as the local? I thought there was a little bit of a difference. Oh, it's the same in this case?
As far as I understand, it's all the same. I could be wrong.
I didn't think it was, but maybe it is. It's been a while since I looked at the whole thing.
I think that's the reason the national became the national, because it was originally supposed to be a local. And since they couldn't make that stick, they made it a national. Ralph would probably be a source for that.
I know at one point we were talking about maybe breaking into groups and discussing parts of the HNRI listing.
HRI, yeah.
Yeah. Going over to see what's changed. Could we do that contiguous to this, or?
That's a totally different subject.
It's a totally different thing.
The committee has nothing to do. It's a totally different subject.
Yeah.
And redevelopment is addressing that as we speak.
Okay. It was something we talked about in the past year or two. So this has to do with getting the green alive again.
Right.
And do we have a list of the 26 historic districts in town somewhere handy? I was looking, but I couldn't find anything.
I think I saw it in something Todd wrote.
Oh, okay.
You can find them online.
Take a look at there's a Concris, which is the SHPO's new interactive map of the entire state with all of the state and national register properties. It's not perfect. It's got a couple of things like a couple of districts where they show all the houses, but not the district outlines. And also on that, because I was looking at it today, Fodor Farm is listed as a local historic district. And I thought we got pretty close to that, but then the mayor at the time killed it. But maybe not. I mean,
it would have to be in your ordinance, though. So check the ordinance.
Yeah, I don't think there's an ordinance, but they have it on the map. So who knows? Kathy Labadia is apparently the LHD person.
Okay.
So the other issue, the local historic resource inventory, because I'm a commissioner on the redevelopment agency, the proposal came before the commission 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy with the proposal. We had a meeting about it last week, and they're refining the scope. And I think that's going to come back to our next meeting, and I'm assuming that we'll go ahead at that point. But
yeah,
we can.
I was in on that meeting too, and there's a whole issue with funding and scope and various things. But I think it's not impossible to fix.
Right. So once that comes back and if that's approved, then I'll make sure the historical commission gets a copy of what the proposal is and what they're doing.
I'm afraid I have to go. So are there any more questions for me before I leave? No? Awesome.
You're off the hook.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you, Darren.
Okay, so what do we do now about this? What do we need to set in motion to make this happen?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. It's a discussion, like it says. Okay. Okay, so next up, approval of April 26th minutes. Anyone? I found a few changes on this. And call to order, it's acknowledged needs a D. And Under Norwalk Historical Society, May 6th, I believe, is the Norwalk River Valley Trail. I don't know who Rhonda is on Ms. Gilgore's list of lecture series. Maybe it doesn't matter. And one other thing, the approval of minutes, March 22nd. Lewis Street is not historic. Okay, I guess we changed that. So we're now, any other changes on April 26th? Anyone see?
I didn't see anything for April
okay, that's all I saw.
April 26th.
A few things. So moving on to July 26th.
I have stuff.
Me too.
After you, Dana.
Let's see. Under Norwalk Historical Society, Daryn is spelled D-A-R-Y-N. I think we've also misspelled Raymond. Does that doesn't have a D,
right.
does it? And does it have a G?
It should be R-E-Y-M-A-N.
Okay, M-A-N. And does Locke have an E, or is it just Locke? I forget.
No E.
Okay. So that's that. And I got under B, Lockwood Matthews Mansion launching a Young Riders competition, I believe is the word, not completion. Paragraph 3, Patsy Brescia, not Patsy Brescia. And they're also having the gala. I believe it should say this instead of still. And let's see. Ms. Brescia is spelled wrong on the last paragraph, and contractors should be an S, I suppose. On buildings, page 3, I don't remember handing over any pool house keys, but I think they meant schoolhouse. And on the approval of minutes, approve is misspelled. And I don't know if it matters that it says page 4 of 3 instead of page 3 of 4, but of course that mixed me up. So what do you have, Eric?
I have background in Norwalk Historical Society. Daryn taking the full-time position with Barnum Museum. However, the position has been filled. Then on
as
page 2, under Lockwood Matthews, second line of the paragraph, interns working for the mansion at the moment.
Now you're cutting out just to make it even more confusing.
And then down a couple of lines, vendors, has a lot of vendors interested. Do you, all right, am I there?
Yes.
Next paragraph.
I just noticed the flea market. Did everyone run away?
Next paragraph, Jim Freyer asked how many baseball panelists. That should be plural. Will this talk need? Then paragraph after Ms. Laird said under its new business, third line, stones to put a water line in. And that's it for me.
Okay. Now I guess we have to vote on since I guess we were supposed to vote on those individually, but we make a motion to approve the minutes from April 26th and July 26th.
Moved.
Approved as amended.
Yeah.
Mark, did you want to vote? Does it? Yes. And where did Barry go? Oh, okay, everyone approves. Oh, look at that. It's Eric's favorite part of the meeting.
Have we approved July 26th?
I did lump them together. Is that okay with everyone? Or do I have to do it separately?
I would think they need to be done separately.
Okay, so a motion to approve of July 26th minutes.
I move. Now we need a second.
Okay, oh, everyone's giving a second. Okay, I'll say, I think I saw Mark's hand first. And now we're voting to approve. Barry's scratching his ear, which is a yes. Where'd Lisa go? She's probably also raising her hand. Yeah,
she's waving
wildly. Okay, so that's been approved. And now we'll need a motion to, number 9 is?
I move to adjourn until next month.
Okay, I think we can approve of that. Do we need to vote on that? I don't think so. All right, thanks everybody.
Okay.
And
thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
bye-bye.